Welcome to Destination Business Freedom, hosted by Pat Mancuso. Join us as we explore success strategies and hacks from leading entrepreneurs, helping you bridge the gap between financial success and personal freedom. Your journey starts here.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Pat Mancuso. I'm the host of Destination Business Freedom Podcast, where I interview thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners who have either exited their business or are in that journey. Additionally, I interview people who can help business owners in that journey to arrive at their destination and close their gap between their finances and their freedom. This episode today is brought to you by the Mancuso Consulting Group, which uses a proprietary Mancuso method to help entrepreneurs and business owners dedicated to closing that gap between their finances and their freedom. We have a free assessment that you can take at www.themancuso-method.com, where once you complete that assessment, you will receive a 10-point process, if you may, to help you close that gap between your finances and your freedom. And when you set up a call with me, we guarantee a value of $10,000 or more in that 30-minute call. Otherwise, I'll write you a check for $500 on the spot. So please go to themancuso-method.com, take the assessment, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Well, today, folks, I am excited to introduce a gentleman to you that I have had the opportunity over the last year to not only meet and have conversations with, but to take in his experience, his knowledge. And we're going to talk today about an area that I know he's very passionate about and has a ton of knowledge on, and has actually created an environment to keep business owners like me and like you out of jail. Now, I know that sounds like crazy on our podcast, but there really is some things coming down the road for business owners that we're going to talk about. So let me introduce you to Grant Teeple. Grant is the managing partner of Teeple Hall, LLP, a business firm that focuses on M&A, tax, and business law. I've had the opportunity to listen to Grant talk about a number of topics, certainly in depth on M&A and acquisition. And the reason is because I'm part of the Epic Group. Roland Frazier has an amazing group of entrepreneurs, business owners, and people who want to acquire businesses. And Grant is a part of that. And so I'm excited to bring him to the show today. And I know he's going to add a lot of value to you as a business owner. So welcome to the show, Grant.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you having me, Pat.
Man, we're so excited. So Grant, I want to just a little bit, I know your firm does a lot more than M&A, but that's where you focus a lot on. So how did you get into M&A? Like, how did you as an attorney kind of go down that path?
Yeah, that's a great question. My family has always been an entrepreneurial family. My father opened and grew and sold businesses. My mom was in real estate. So I've always been in that environment. Then after law school, I joined a firm, and from the beginning, we focused just on business. So no divorce, no bankruptcy, no criminal, no family law, no personal injury, just stuff that businesses need. And M&A, tax and M&A go hand in hand, mergers and acquisitions, right? Buying and selling all or some of your business, raising money, key agreements that you need to run those businesses have all been part of what I've been doing now for over 30 years. And it's been a passion of mine and remains one. I really love building businesses.
And, what's interesting is people hear the word M&A or mergers and acquisitions, and, it means so much, so many things to so many different people, right, in that process. So let me ask you this question. So you talked a lot at Epic and shared with us a lot of insights on some fundamentals, for example, like a LOI or, a letter of intent, and you shared a lot. What do you see as one of the most common, biggest mistakes that on the buying side, that somebody's buying a business, and when you're kind of brought into the transaction or you're exposed to the transaction?
Sure. And boy, that's a great question. And there's a lot of ways to mess up a deal. Let me tell you, more than one thing that buyers, will do that it's a mistake is to fall in love with the deal. I think
right
from the beginning, you've got to be very dispassionate and very objective about the deal. And don't assume everything's going to be just fine, because most times everything's not going to be just fine.
Right.
Another big, other than falling in love with the deal, another big mistake I see buyers make, especially new buyers, is buying a business that is not in your area of expertise. Now, look, I got a very common example here in my law firm. Over the years, we've represented lots of physicians, and near the ends of the career, they've got some money, they're dialing back or retiring, and they all want to go out. They want to stay in business. They've not had any real social life. They've been doctors the whole time. And an amazing percentage of them want to do what? They want to buy a bar or a restaurant because they think it's Cheers, right? They'll have immediate friends. It'll be a social event. And I can't think of one of them who made it north in a year or two out of there. And it was not because the bars and restaurants aren't profitable. We know they are. They're open all over the place, right? The food and drink is inelastic. People need it. But what it is they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to hire. They don't know how to run the place. They don't know how to market it. And so buying outside of your expertise can be a real problem. Now, you can fix that problem if you have a partner or someone who is an expert in the area that is a part of your organization. But then you really have to be wholly dependent and rely on them. So be careful about buying outside of your area of expertise and competence. If it's something that looks good, but you don't have experience with it, you really need to find a way to bring that experience along. Finally, one of the things that I've seen people do that really you could see going in could be a problem is buying a business where you are located somewhere else other than the business. That means I live in California and I buy a business in Texas. Especially if it's a brick and mortar business, but even if it's not, if that's where the employees and all your thought process and all the thought partners are, you can only do so much on Zoom. And especially if it's a brick and mortar business, like a mechanic shop, an HVAC, a carpet store, anything that's brick and mortar, right?
Right.
You really need buying a business like that and not being present to watch over it has a way of corrupting businesses in many cases. So there's a quick few, and I can just keep going all day, but those are some top ones.
So let's flip it over for a second on the seller side. What do you see the seller's biggest mistakes?
Well, it's seller's biggest mistakes is knowing how to market your business properly, right? Because you want to make sure that your business is you're getting the highest fair market value for it. B, sometimes sellers have an opportunity to reposition their business to get a higher multiple, right? So if you're an educational type company, maybe you move over to being more of a publishing type format. You could get a higher multiple doing that.
Right.
Maybe you're an education company, but you can offer your education through a software platform and be somewhat of a software company, again, reaching for a higher multiple. So really knowing how to market and position the business would be two major concerns. The last one is vetting the buyer and making sure that the buyer can actually pay you, because the minute you hand them the keys to the car and they drive off, all you have is a piece of paper saying, they're going to pay you, unless you get all cashed out on the barrelhead the day you sell.
Right.
Making sure that you really are secured, that the agreement protects you in the event that they, for whatever reason, the business goes away or the human being goes away that you did the deal with, that you can still either reclaim the business if you want or somehow get paid.
Yeah. What I really love, and we're going to shift gears here pretty quick on to the important topic I wanted to bring you today. But one of the things that you have certainly shared that I've learned is that there's so many pieces to the M&A, whether you're on the buy side or sell side. And obviously in Epic, this is one of the reasons why we're part of Epic, because of those resources. But you have just an incredible knowledge base with that when you deliver it, it's like your experience shows through. And so the reason I'm kind of laying that runway for you is, when is the best time for you to come into the transaction?
That's a great question. When and how to use the attorney and how much attorney do you really need?
Right.
A $20,000 deal is going to need a little bit different touch on the $200,000 than the $2 million or a $200 million, right?
Right.
Minimally, my clients always run the initial LOI or term sheet by me to look at it. Are we buying it with the right entity? Are there tax considerations? Are there terms that they're forgetting to put in there that they might want to have in there for their protection? It's so important when you start any transaction to create a roadmap. Now, a lot of times that's the letter of intent, right? The letter of intent should lay out all the material terms of the transaction and describe the process of how the transaction will unfold, how long will it take, how's the information treated. And so that's really your roadmap. And I have a fun saying I like, which is, if you don't know where you're going, you'll definitely get there. And the LOI, or at least a really detailed term sheet, should lay out all the material terms of the transaction and the process of the transaction in a way so that, especially when you're buying and the seller's out there selling, and maybe they're selling for the first time, this is if they're agreeing to that LOI, then they've agreed to that roadmap from here to the actual transaction. What you do is surprise a seller along the way. You want to talk to my top 10 clients? Why? You want to talk to my employees before we close? Why would you ever want to do that? That can spook the seller. But if they know this is coming, if they've signed up for it by signing off on the LOI or the term sheet that contains that, then it can make the process so much smoother. So the initial phase when we build that, and that's not very much attorney time. We can usually do an LOI in an hour, maybe a little more.
Sure.
It doesn't take that awful long. And then the next phase of any transaction, once the LOI gets signed, is what? It's the due diligence. It's when you're going into looking at the financials and looking at the legal questions of how the business has been run. I can help with that or not. It just depends. So you don't always need the attorney to do everything, and sometimes they'll have me do everything. And then finally, actually papering the deal so that what we're trying to achieve is, written down in a way that makes everybody feel safe and comfortable that when the transaction closes, everybody's protected. And the best times to use me are definitely have your lawyer look at the LOI, and certainly when you do the final documentation. Minimally, you'll have lawyer usually on both those points. And again, the middle part, the diligence and the negotiating the deal, is just kind of a case-by-case basis.
Sure, that makes sense. Well, the reason I wanted to start with that is I know you guys, you and your firm, you certainly have a lot of experience in that area, and with our relationship with Roland, and obviously I know you've known Roland for a long time. He wouldn't put his faith in somebody who didn't have that experience. So I want to make sure that people, are aware that that is certainly an opportunity. And, with the number of baby boomers retiring or exiting their businesses, there is going to be no shortage of opportunity to help those business owners, whether they're on the buy side or sell side. So definitely reach out, folks, if you need some help, because Grant and his team are amazing. So I'm going to throw some acronyms out at you. Like, we're going to make this transition. First, I'm going to start with the whole objective of me interviewing you based upon what you presented to us at Epic is keeping people out of jail. And I know that sounds extreme, but the law is the law, and also avoiding fines. So CTA, BOI, holy buckets. We've got a bunch of stuff coming at us, and it seems absolutely crazy, Grant. Like, I mean, it seems crazy. So let's start with, what is BOI and what is CTA, and what's driving this legislation, if you may?
Sure. I got a quick little overview. If you maybe give me some screen sharing.
Absolutely.
I can do that here.
You got it.
So the Congress was really worried about money laundering and illegal transfer of wealth. So consistent with really the rest of the world, the United States is a little bit late to this. And Europe has and most other countries have a much stricter laws about reporting financial transactions.
Mm-hmm.
In ownership of company. So the United States just passed, effective January 1st of 2024, the Corporate Transparency Act. And the Corporate Transparency Act requires every single business owner of a LLC or of a corporation, certain types of trusts and partnerships, every single one of you who has that have to provide information to the federal government FinCEN database. That's FINCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And you must provide the information about who the beneficial owners are of the company and who the control people are of the company. It's both, not just ownership, right? So BOI is beneficial owner information, right? CTA is Corporate Transparency Act, and that's really how it is. So let me share this here with you real quickly. All right. So can you see that all right?
Absolutely.
So the Corporate Transparency Act it is what the name of the law is. The corporate, well, let's see if I didn't do something right here on my, there we go. It is part of the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2020, and it's aimed at increasing corporate transparency in the U.S. It's really, what they've done is they've weaponized your CPAs, lawyers, and bankers against you to give up more of your privacy. Because they want to prevent illicit financial, they want to prevent money laundering and increase accountability, but they do it by requiring you provide personal information about different people in your company. So I've already talked about FinCEN being the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Let's just get right on. This is, again, applicable to all LLCs and all corporations, right? There are some exemptions. If you're a school district or an insurance company or a public company, they already have this information on you anyhow. But for purposes of the people on your podcast, I doubt anyone's going to be exempt. Now, what you have to do for every person in your company who's over 25% owner or who's a material operator, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, you have to provide the date of birth, their address, and a copy of, and the information on your passport or a current driver's license. So they're going to have your eye color, a picture of you, your hair color. Obviously, they'll have your address, they'll have your date of birth, they'll have all that information, and that needs to be uploaded to the FinCEN government database. The filing has to be done. The company does the filing. The filing has to be done within 30 days of the creation of an LLC. And if you had one from 72, or you've had one for years and years, you have to have that information up by the end of this calendar year. So you have to have it here. Coming up. It's today it's November 26th, just before Thanksgiving. Everybody has about 30 days to get compliant. FinCEN says they'll keep, when you give them the information, they'll keep it confidential, but that's the government.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Good luck. Now here's the sexy part, right? The part that you were talking about. If you do not comply, that means if you have not put your information up there, or the information up there is inaccurate and not current, and we'll talk about that in a minute, it's up to a $500 a day fine for any late filings, right? Every single day. And I want to tell you, companies who don't comply with this, when you build your company up and you don't comply, and a year or 2 or 3 years later, let's say for some reason you're not getting prosecuted by the government yet.
Right.
What you're going to have, though, when I do the due diligence on the business, I'm going to check and see if you've complied as a company. And if I haven't, I'm going to multiply $500 times every day you haven't done it. And I'm going to say that amount of money has to be set aside in a reserve until the statute of limitation passes. Right? So imagine it could be, hundreds of thousands of dollars just for a few years of non-compliance. 1 year alone is 500 times 365. You do the math. It'd be a whole lot of money. In addition, that it says criminal penalties for intentional evasion. I've got to take this off and make sure it's clear. It's 2 years. It's a felony. It's up to 2 years in jail if you don't comply. $500 a day, up to 2 years in jail if you don't comply. So it's a real thing. You should comply because, again, you really want, when you have partners, stakeholders, when you have investors, you need to be in compliance or you're breaching their fiduciary duty to them. It is really aligning us with the international law, as I said before. This is kind of the standard everywhere else in the world, and we're a little late to the game. And I think it's a lot because of our freedoms. It's a pain in the butt, because you've got to listen. If somebody gives you their driver's license and you're one of your controlled people, we'll talk about who they are in a minute. But let's say it's your CEO and his driver's license or passport expires. They've got to get a new one issued. And you've got to get compliant. You've got to get it up there. If their address changes, then that information is not accurate. And you're supposed to get compliant within 30 days of any time. So let me just drop this down now. So that's really it in a nutshell. I'm going to show you one other thing that it's a common question I get. Just give me a moment here. Get my other display up. Okay. The government issued a handbook, and I'll give everybody the link to that handbook, or at least show you how to get to it. This is it here. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger for us all. It's not helping. I don't think I'm able to make it bigger. There it is, a little bigger. All right. When we talked about who has to, whose information in the company do you have to provide to FinCEN? There's two categories, right? One is anybody who owns 25% or more. That's easy. Okay, you got to put up their name, address, a driver's license, or a passport, right? That's
right.
But if you are, look at this, substantial controlling indicators. This is from the FinCEN. This is from their handbook describing how the law works. Look, your president, your chief financial officer, general counsel, chief executive officer, right? And then there's the catch-all down here. Any important decision maker, and the catch-all, any other form of substantial control over the business, right? So if you could hire or fire, decide when the company can be bought, can be sold, anything like that. These people are all reporting people. So companies, any real company that's operating may have 5, 10, 15 reporting people. And if they come and go from the positions, you've got to remember, you've got to keep current on that. So and I told everybody, I'd tell you where this is, how you can get this. I'll tell you right. Whoop. Let's see if I can scroll down a little.
And we'll definitely make sure we put this in the show notes for everybody.
I'm sure you will. There. So look, right down here at the bottom, the beneficial ownership information reporting requirements, small entity compliance guide. So if you Google beneficial owner information reporting requirements, small entity compliance guide, you'll get a link to this. You can download the little booklet and you can read all about the Transparency Act. But the real test, the real magic is two things. One, making sure you identify all the people in your company who need to comply. And two, keeping that information current and up to date. That's really what the trick here is, because people think it's a kind of thing you file and you file and forget. Well, that's true until employees come and go from companies all the time, right? Owners come and go all the time, and all of them move and have their driver's license and passports expire from time to time. So that's in terms of staying current, those are some things you really have to be mindful of the whole time.
So I'm gonna rapid fire some questions. I know you've talked about some of these, but this one just came to mind. So let's say I'm an entity, but I'm not an active entity.
It doesn't
need to file
unless the company has been dissolved officially by the Secretary of State in your state. You must file.
How many companies do you think have not been officially dissolved that could get caught up in that?
Well, that's a great question. How many companies out there that are
inactive but haven't been officially dissolved?
I'll bet there's millions. Millions, sure.
Wow. Okay. Second question. You talked about the coming and going of people. And so then, and again, I know you said this, but because I heard it in your presentation at Epic, every time that has to be updated.
That's right. That's exactly right. Every time.
And if it's not updated, then it's not in compliance. And if it's not in compliance, it's a daily and, to spend a night in jail type of deal.
Well, if it's not a compliant, I wonder how many people they're really going to put in jail. But what they are going to do is they are going to assess those fines. And what you are going to do is you're going to find, and I'm repeating myself, that when you go to sell your company, go to borrow money, whatever it may be, you're going to be asked, are you compliant? And you're going to be able to demonstrate compliant and that you've maintained that compliance. And if you can't demonstrate that you're compliant, then it's going to affect their evaluation financially of your business, both financially and management wise.
And how many people, Grant, that's the first time I've heard you now. I'm sure you might have said it, but how many people are not even considering that are thinking about selling their business, and all of a sudden they won't be compliant in 2025? And a great attorney will pick on the I mean, wow, that's a big takeaway. I mean, that is an absolute big takeaway.
Even a bad attorney is going to find it, because on every single legal diligence checklist, now we all have them. Attorneys all have legal diligence checklists, you know.
Right.
The articles of incorporation are good, and the minutes have been signed, and the operating agreement or the shareholder agreement are correct, blah, blah, blah. Well, now we all have added a section for Corporate Transparency Act. Everybody knows to ask this question now, the banks and every attorney. It's and if you're not compliant, it's gonna be not fun, because it's gonna affect the valuation and or your ability to cash out of the business.
So do you know, this again is just rapid fire, is there going to be a place at the government you can go find out if a business is in compliance?
Well, the answer is no. The public is not supposed to have access to this federal database. Only the criminal arm of FinCEN is having access to. So only you know if you're compliant. And then, as you know, we have at my firm started a website, CTA portal.us, like Charlie Tom Alpha portal.us, CTA portal.us, the Corporate Transparency Act. And that portal is set up for compliance. You go on the portal, it help you identify which people in your company have to report and don't. For the people that do report, it gives you a place to upload securely under attorney-client privilege, because it's done through my law firm. All of this highly sensitive personal information, you upload it to our website, and then we make sure that it's uploaded and properly sent to the government for you. We review the material, we put it up there, and make sure that it's compliant. We also track the driver's license expiration date and the passport expiration date, and send you out a notice when they cancel, so that you know to go and ask, Susie or whoever it may be, say, hey, I need a new form of ID because we're not in compliance because of you. Finally, it provides a full audit trail of anybody you've had in the system or out of the system that you can show people to demonstrate that you're compliant. Right now, if you just go and directly upload stuff to the government, you won't going to get any notices when things expire, and you're not going to have any kind of audit trail or any certification of your compliance.
So and I could have misunderstood this, so I'm going to put the caveat. But when you were doing the presentation, one of the things that I picked up on was the attorney-client privilege compared to my CPA, or compared to some resource that didn't do what you all are doing the way that you're doing it. Will you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So imagine a company, even a larger company, that has 10, 15, maybe 20 people who are going to have to be disclosed as either beneficial owners or control people, right?
Right.
The titles that we went over earlier. So what you're doing now is you're putting a burden internally on your HR to collect everybody's, normally you're not collecting everybody's driver's license and passports, and you may have people's date of birth, but it's not something that you would normally do. And then once you've done that, organizing it and getting it up and making sure it's current on the federal database, the people don't want that extra HR burden. So then what you have is there's other services besides ctaportal.us that out there will do this. I think LegalZoom has one. But when you do that, now you've taken, 5, 10, 15 people's private information, copy of their driver's license or driver's license number, or their passport number, whatever all the information is, and you're giving it to a third-party provider. And that provider they can agree to keep it confidential, but if somebody hits them with a subpoena or a lawsuit or whatever it may be, they're going to have to disclose that information. By doing it through my portal, you have the attorney-client privilege. Nobody can get through the attorney-client privilege. Everything you say is confidential. Now, sure, a court order could, if we were doing something like defrauding people, get
right.
But absent something extraordinary like that,
right?
We give every company the confidence and comfort to know that the information that's provided is going to stay attorney-client privilege, and then hopefully stay protected up at the government level, and it's
right.
And out to some third-party vendor who doesn't enjoy an attorney-client privilege.
And that is different than a CPA, correct?
Correct. There's no CPA.
That struck me big time. That struck me.
In fact, most CPAs won't do this. Most CPAs just tell you have to do it and give you a link to the government website. But again, you're not getting audit trail, you're not getting updates, you're not getting alerts.
So it's interesting that you say that. And this brings me to my next question in this. I don't remember exactly what the fee was. So I want you to talk about that because I got a letter from my CPA yesterday. I have multiple entities and it's $300 to $500
Per entity?
per entity.
Yeah. Well, they're going to do it for you for $300 to $500.
That's well, in the letter, it outlined, they have this service and, this is a legacy CPA firm, 100 years. So how does that compare? Now, by the way, I should say this. I also got a letter from an entity that I have in a different state that they could do my filing for $25. Now that concerned me a little bit. So, tell me the model that you all have in your CTA portal.
Yeah, in the CTA portal, we do review each piece of paper, each ID directly in the office. Paralegals will look at them and make sure that everything's copacetic, right? That it's all in the right order, and then we do the uploading. It's $250. So we're a little under your CPA in that, but you can call up and speak with one of our paralegals. We have a lot of extra resources. I'm aware of the $25 and $50 solutions out there, but they are, you won't have anybody you can call and get the information from, or you won't have certainly the attorney-client privilege. And I would bet you that nobody's reviewing. They're just literally taking your information and throwing it up on the website without review.
Well, and they don't have the follow-up of the expiration dates and the compliance and all those type of things. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, Grant, because I know that, you saw this coming and you're a very smart guy and your team is, and what you guys are doing, I just think is beneficial. Plus, there was a challenge, as I understand it, to this regulation, this law, and that didn't go anywhere. So this is happening unless there's some last minute thing, correct?
There are challenges out there pending in a couple courts, but it is not going anywhere. Even if challenges are successful in part or in whole, you can bet Congress will come back and find a way to get this done. And likely these challenges will be won't go anywhere, as you said. It really is the world standard now, and I don't see us getting away from that.
And so this is going to be an ongoing deal. And you talked about HR departments. Imagine a large, 3M type of company, and oh my gosh, how many controlling people they have.
Exactly. You have it.
And then one last question, just because it popped into my head. So whether it's an investor or controlling partner, any issues or requirements being U.S. citizens?
No, in fact, it's a great question. This applies to anybody who has a company. And if you happen to be a foreign national, you still have the reporting requirement.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I am, is there anything I didn't ask you that, on this, because I do think this is, an important deal. And like you mentioned, we're doing this right before Thanksgiving, which gives people plenty of time. And, at $500 a day, it's going to add up pretty quick if they don't get this done.
No, I think we covered it all. I think we covered who it applies to, how it works. We talked about the CTA portal.us solution that we have. And I think, I really think it's amazing to me how many people don't even know that this law is out there.
I know.
I don't see anything about it in the newspapers. I don't see anything on the news. I don't see it anywhere. And it's just going to be unfortunate. You're going to have a lot of people. Yeah, maybe you can get compliant in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months, or maybe you can even end of next year, you'll get compliant. But what do you do with that historical potential liability on your books now of $500 a day?
No one's talking about that, Grant. No one. I haven't heard a thing on that.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a big deal. Like, that was worth the price of having, so to speak, having you on today. If I can get that communicated to people, and, whether they use your portal, which of course I think they should, but whoever, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. I'm glad you're doing this, because the more we can get the information out there, the more we can get people out there freed up from their businesses and onto their finances and freedom properly coordinated.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, this is exactly why you want to use we bring people that are incredibly talented to our show, and you want to use the resources that we bring because they're at the forefront. And, again, I acknowledge Roland and Deanna and the entire team at Epic because it's just, I've learned and taken away so much. And obviously you as a resource as part of that group is amazing as well. So as a final thought, Grant, two things. A final thought you'd share with somebody, any thought at all in your journey as an attorney, and then where would be the best place for people to reach out to you if they wanted to connect for, say, on social media or any of those resources?
Yeah, probably just to our website, teeplehall.com, like my name, TeePlehall.com. That's probably the best way to get a hold of us. And maybe the only other thing to think about, if you're out there buying and selling businesses we didn't really cover, people don't pay a lot of attention to, is when you do decide to buy a business or sell a business, really look at the tax implications. If you're going to buy the business, what type of business are you going to own it with? Right? Are we going to own it with an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp? Where's that business going to be located? Right? And that's both on the buy and the sell side. If you're going to sell, who do you want the seller to be? Because you can decide, maybe it's not you. Maybe it's a structure that you put up that's more tax favored. So really look at your taxes when you're on the buy and sell side of any M&A deal. I think that's something we didn't talk about, but which really drives so much of M&A work, which is the tax implications. So that's the last pearl for the day, I think.
Well, you just set up the fact that we're going to have you back at another episode if you're willing, and absolutely drill down on that, because I do think there's a whole lot of opportunity there as well. For people to learn. And so there you go. There's the invite to have you back for another episode of 2025.
Happy to do it. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy New Year to you.
I love it. Well, hey, everybody, thank you so much. We so appreciate your support. Visit us on all our social media resources. Please reach out to Grant and his team at the CTA portal.us and definitely take advantage of that, and don't not do it, because $500 will add up pretty quickly, and you definitely don't want that money going places where it shouldn't go, if you may. So thanks, everybody. Have a great holiday season. And Grant, thanks again for all that you've supplied us today. It was amazing.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining Destination Business Freedom with Pat Mancuso. May the insights and strategies shared guide you towards financial prosperity and personal freedom. Continue to navigate boldly. Until next time, keep transforming challenges into achievements. Farewell, and stay the course.